He wasn't a cop. Everyone thought he was. Until he humiliated the wrong woman. One tap on her car window, one fake command, and everything he pretended to be came crashing down. Because some lies are too big to hide. And some people, they don't forgive. If that moment made your heart stop, stay with us. Because what happens next will make you question everything about justice. Subscribe, and let's uncover the truth together. The street was quiet. A few cars passed, but mostly it was empty. He walked confidently, badge in hand, uniform pressed and perfect. Every step screamed authority. She was sitting in her car, waiting for a friend, scrolling through her phone. She didn't know him. She didn't know he wasn't real. He tapped on her window. She looked up, startled. "Ma'am, I need you to step out of the vehicle," he said, his tone sharp. His badge flashed in the sunlight, or at least it looked official. She frowned. "Excuse me? What's this about?" He leaned closer, chest out, voice commanding. "I'm an officer. You're under investigation for a traffic violation." She blinked, confused. "A traffic violation? I didn't do anything wrong." He smirked. "We'll see about that. Step out." Her hand tightened on the steering wheel. Something didn't feel right. Her instincts told her something was off, but she stayed calm. "I need to see your badge number and your identification." He hesitated for a split second, then waved her off. "Don't worry about that. Just cooperate, or there will be consequences." She sighed, rolling her eyes, her tone firm now. "I don't think you're a real cop." His smirk faltered. That hesitation, that tiny crack in his confidence, was all she needed. "You're not," he snapped. She stepped out of the car, slowly, holding her phone in front of her. "I'm recording this. Because if you're pretending to be a cop, you're breaking the law." His fake authority couldn't hide the panic creeping into his eyes. The smirk was gone. The air shifted. People passing by began to glance over. She continued, calm but unyielding. "You humiliated me, tried to scare me, and thought no one would notice. But honesty is the best policy. You should have shown it from the start." His hand shook slightly. The badge, the uniform, the confident act, all useless now. She wasn't afraid, and that scared him more than anything. The crowd began to gather, murmuring, curious. The fake cop's world was starting to collapse in front of witnesses. And that was only the beginning. Whispers spread through the small crowd that had gathered. Phones came out, cameras recording every second. People were starting to realize something was wrong. He took a step back, trying to regain control. "I'm a cop. You have no right." "Save it," she said calmly, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "You don't even know what being a cop means. You're pretending, and everyone here can see it." His face turned red, a mix of anger and fear. He glanced at the crowd, hoping for someone to back him up. No one moved. No one said a word. She raised her phone higher, recording him, making sure every gesture, every lie, was captured. "You thought a uniform would give you power over me. But honesty is the best policy. And you've just shown everyone exactly who you are." People started whispering, pointing. Someone called out, "That's not a cop." Others nodded, murmurs growing louder. The crowd was no longer silent witnesses. They were witnesses of truth. His hands fidgeted with the fake badge. The confidence that had carried him here moments ago was gone. He tried to speak again, to regain authority, but his words sounded hollow even to himself. She leaned closer, unwavering. "You humiliated me. You humiliated others before me. But lies always come to light. And now everyone knows. You can't fake this anymore." His eyes darted around, panic rising. He stepped back, searching the crowd for support, but there was none. Every face was skeptical, some even angry. Phones were raised everywhere, recording, broadcasting, capturing every lie. A man from the crowd shouted, "Show your ID. Now." He stammered, fumbling with his pockets, realizing there was nothing real there. No credentials, no backup, just the uniform he had bought online. The woman held her ground, steady and composed. "You can't hide behind lies. People trust a badge, and you abuse that trust. But lies don't last forever." She glanced at the growing crowd. "Do you see this? This is what happens when you pretend to be someone you're not. People notice. They see through it. Honesty is the only way to have respect and authority." He turned pale. The fake badge in his hand felt heavier than ever. The hum of phones recording, the whispers, the pointing, it all pressed down on him like a weight he couldn't lift. Someone in the crowd spoke directly into their phone, live streaming the moment. This guy's not a cop. Look at him. He tried to intimidate a woman, and now he's exposed. Panic overtook him. He made a desperate move, trying to shove past the woman and escape. But the crowd closed in, not to hurt him, but to ensure he couldn't vanish unnoticed. The woman stepped forward, calm, unwavering. Running won't save you. Truth always comes out. You humiliated me, and now everyone sees who you really are. Honesty is the best policy, and you've chosen the exact opposite. His facade was crumbling. Every lie, every act of pretense, every moment he thought he had control, it all dissolved before the eyes of witnesses. And just like that, the fake cop wasn't a figure of authority anymore. He was a man exposed. Within minutes, the real authorities arrived. Sirens cut through the murmurs of the crowd. Officers stepped out, badges gleaming, eyes scanning the scene. The fake cop froze. His heartbeat thundered in his chest. This wasn't part of the plan. He had counted on no one calling for real police, on no one questioning him. But now the law he pretended to serve was here, and it wasn't forgiving. The woman pointed him out immediately. This man is not a cop. He harassed me and tried to intimidate me. He's been lying to people. The real officers approached cautiously, keeping an eye on the tense crowd. One of them held out a hand and asked for identification. He fumbled, hands trembling, and produced nothing but the fake badge. The officers exchanged looks. One shook his head. You're under arrest for impersonating a police officer and harassment. You have the right to remain silent. The crowd murmured, some cheering, others just shaking their heads. Cameras continued rolling, capturing every humiliating moment. The woman watched silently, satisfied but composed. She knew the lesson wasn't just for him. It was for everyone who thought power could be faked. As he was led away, his confident stride replaced by shame and fear, she spoke to the crowd. This is why honesty is the best policy. Lies always catch up with you, no matter how convincing they seem. Pretending to be someone you're not only brings humiliation, and sometimes worse. People nodded, understanding. Some whispered to each other, reflecting on their own lives, their own choices. The fake cop had wanted control, but in the end, truth had the upper hand. And a lesson? It was clear to everyone who had witnessed it. Honesty isn't just moral, it's survival. By now, the street had emptied, but the story had already begun spread. People were talking, sharing videos, posting clips online. Every angle of the encounter was there for the world to see. The woman stayed calm, leaning against her car. She didn't celebrate. She knew the lesson was bigger than one man's humiliation. This was about truth, honesty, and the consequences of pretending to be someone you're not. Neighbors came forward, sharing that they had seen him before, flaunting authority in ways that didn't seem right. Some admitted they had been intimidated, even scared. Now, everything clicked. All those small lies, the subtle threats, the fake persona, it made sense. The woman's phone buzzed constantly. Messages from friends, strangers, and even local news outlets asking for interviews poured in. But she only answered one thing. Honesty is the best policy. That's what I want people to remember. Meanwhile, the fake cop sat in the back of a real police car, the weight of reality pressing down on him. No uniform could shield him now. No badge could defend him. Every lie, every deceit, every moment he thought he had control was gone. At the precinct, officers documented his actions, questioning witnesses, reviewing footage, and preparing charges. They were thorough because this wasn't just impersonating a cop. It was a violation of trust, an abuse of a symbol people respect and rely on. Word traveled fast through the community. Local leaders, neighbors, even people who hadn't been near the scene were talking about the incident. The woman became a symbol of courage, showing that one person standing up for the truth could stop someone abusing authority. Later that evening, she sat quietly in her living room, reflecting. She thought about how easily people could be deceived when someone wore a uniform, when they used confidence to mask lies. But she also thought about the lesson. Honesty is powerful. Lies can't stand forever. Pretending to be someone you're not only leads to humiliation and regret. Her phone buzzed again. Another local news reporter wanted a statement. She replied simply, "Truth matters. Integrity matters. And no one should ever misuse trust for personal gain." The man who had tried to humiliate her would now face the legal system. But beyond that, his reputation was ruined. People would remember him not as an officer, not as someone with authority, but as a man exposed by lies. And the woman? She had not only defended herself, but reminded everyone who witnessed it, and everyone who would see it online, that honesty isn't just a moral choice. It's the only way to live with respect, trust, and dignity. The next morning, the story had exploded online. Every news site, every social media feed, seemed to carry the video of the encounter. People were outraged, not at the woman, but the man who had pretended to be a cop. At the police station, the fake cop sat in a small holding room, hands cuffed, face pale. He had imagined that his lies would protect him, that no one would question him. Now, surrounded by real law enforcement, there was no escape. A detective entered, flipping through the files. "You're facing multiple charges: impersonating a police officer, harassment, intimidation. Do you understand the severity of this?" He swallowed hard. I didn't mean any harm. I just wanted respect." The detective shook his head. "Respect isn't earned by pretending to be someone you're not. You humiliated a woman and abused a symbol people trust. There are consequences for that." Meanwhile, the woman watched the news unfold from her living room. She saw the video again, this time with real commentary from experts discussing the law and the dangers of impersonating authority. She felt a quiet satisfaction, not from revenge, but from justice being served. At the courthouse, neighbors and community members showed up. Some brought their own stories of encounters with the fake cop. They spoke about the fear they had felt, the confusion, the small ways he had tried to control them. All of it came together to show a pattern of lies and deception. The fake cop's lawyer tried to spin the story, to claim it was a misunderstanding. But every camera, every witness, every online clip told the truth. His lies were no longer words. They were actions captured forever. The woman testified calmly. She described the moment he approached her, the fake commands, the intimidation, and how she had remained composed. She spoke not with anger, but with clarity. "He humiliated me. But more importantly, he showed the world what happens when someone chooses lies over honesty." The judge listened intently. The evidence was overwhelming. The verdict was clear: impersonating a police officer, abusing trust, and attempting to intimidate others carried serious legal consequences. And outside the courthouse, the community watched. People whispered to each other, reflecting on their own lives. They understood the lesson. Honesty isn't just moral, it's essential. Lies may seem easy, but they always catch up, and they always destroy the one who hides behind them. By the end of the day, the man who had thought a uniform could give him power walked out with a court date, facing the full weight of the law. But even worse than that, his reputation, trust, and credibility were gone. The woman returned home, her life unchanged except for one thing. She had reminded everyone that courage and honesty could stop even the most confident liar. She had stood her ground and proved that integrity isn't optional, it's necessary. By the following week, the story had gone viral. Videos of the encounter were shared across social media, accumulating millions of views. People couldn't stop talking about how a fake cop had tried to humiliate a woman and had been exposed. Comment sections were flooded with messages of support for her and warnings to others. "Don't ever pretend to be someone you're not," one comment read. "Honesty is the only way to live with respect." Local news interviewed the woman. Calm, composed, she spoke directly to the camera. "It's not just about one man or one encounter. It's about accountability. Lies have consequences. Pretending to be someone you're not doesn't just hurt you. It can hurt everyone around you." Schools and community groups picked up the story as an example of integrity and courage. Workshops and discussions were organized, teaching young adults about trust, honesty, and the dangers of deception. The woman's actions became a case study for how standing up for truth can make a lasting impact. Meanwhile, the man who had pretended to be a cop struggled with the social consequences. His neighbors no longer trusted him. Friends stopped returning his calls. Employers who had considered him for positions that required trust suddenly had doubts. Every lie he had built his small world on came crumbling down. He tried to post statements online, claiming it had been a misunderstanding. But no one believed him. The recordings, witnesses, and news coverage were too clear. Each attempt to defend himself only reminded people of his dishonesty. The woman, however, remained composed. She didn't gloat. She continued her life, aware that the lesson wasn't just for him. It was for anyone tempted to take shortcuts with lies, to pretend to be someone they're not, or to misuse power they hadn't earned. In conversations with friends and neighbors, she emphasized the importance of integrity. Power without honesty is empty, she told them. Respect and trust aren't things you can fake. You earn them, or you lose them. Even days later, people still spoke of the incident in hushed tones, not out of fear but out of awe. A single act of standing up to dishonesty had rippled through the community, inspiring conversations, reflection, and change. And the man? Every message he sent, every social media attempt, every lie he tried to weave only reminded everyone of his downfall. The lesson was clear. Pretending to be someone you're not, no matter how convincing, will always catch up with you. Honesty isn't just a principle. It's survival. Weeks passed, and the man who pretended to be a cop faced mounting legal pressure. Court dates were set, and lawyers warned him that impersonating law enforcement carried serious penalties. Each day, the reality of his lies weighed heavier. He tried desperately to reach out to people he thought might help him, old friends, acquaintances, anyone who could vouch for him. But everywhere he turned, doors closed. The community had seen the truth, and no one wanted to be associated with a liar who humiliated others. Meanwhile, the woman continued to receive messages of support. People thanked her for standing up, for showing courage when most would have stayed silent. She began speaking publicly at small community events, teaching others about the dangers of deception and the power of honesty. Local leaders praised her bravery, and some even invited her to schools and civic groups to share her experience. She spoke clearly, without anger, focusing on the lesson rather than revenge. Lies can seem harmless at first, but pretending to be someone you're not can destroy lives, yours included. Honesty isn't just moral, it's survival. The man, on the other hand, spiraled further. He posted desperate statements online, trying to justify himself, to explain away the humiliation he had caused. Each attempt backfired. People scrutinized every word, every excuse, and shared clips of the original encounter to remind everyone of the truth. At the courthouse, lawyers representing the woman and witnesses prepared evidence meticulously. Footage from phones, eyewitness accounts, and his own failed attempts to defend himself created a clear pattern. A man abusing a symbol of authority for personal gain. He realized, too late, that a uniform and a fake badge could never replace honesty. Each lie he had told, each moment of intimidation, was now a mark against him in the court of law and in the court of public opinion. By the time the next court date arrived, the story had grown even larger. News outlets covered it, highlighting not just the man's crime, but the woman's courage. People began sharing the moral widely. Dishonesty might seem convenient, but it always comes with consequences. And the man? He was running out of options. Every lie he had relied on had failed, and the only path left was accountability. The courtroom was packed. Cameras lined the walls. Reporters whispered to each other, and members of the public craned their necks to see the man who had pretended to be a cop. He sat at the defendant's table, hands nervously clasped, face pale and rigid. The woman entered quietly, composed. She didn't glare. She didn't mock. She knew the power wasn't in anger. It was in truth. Her presence alone reminded everyone of the moment that had exposed him. The judge called the session to order. The charges were read aloud. Impersonation of a police officer, harassment, intimidation, and abuse of trust. Each word hit the man like a hammer. The prosecutor began, walking slowly in front of the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, What we have here is a man who abused the trust of his community. He pretended to have authority, to intimidate, and to humiliate. And he chose the wrong person target, because truth has a way of revealing itself. The jury listened closely, watching the video footage of the encounter. Every gesture, every attempt at intimidation, every lie he had told played back in vivid clarity. The smirk he once wore, the fake confidence, the trembling as he was exposed, all captured forever. The woman was called to testify. Calmly, she described how he approached her, the fake commands, and how she realized immediately that something was wrong. She didn't just recount the humiliation, she emphasized the lesson. Honesty is the best policy, she said clearly. Lies might give you temporary power, but they destroy trust, credibility, and respect. This man chose to lie. He chose to pretend. And now he is facing the consequences of that choice. The man tried to speak, tried to defend himself, but his words fell flat. Witnesses, neighbors, and even experts confirmed the pattern of deception. Every lie he had built his reputation on was now his downfall. By the end of the first day of trial, it was clear to everyone in the room. Pretension and lies could not withstand truth. The jury, the judge, and the public had all seen the consequences of pretending to be someone you're not. Outside the courtroom, reporters asked the woman what she hoped people would learn. She replied simply, "Don't rely on lies. Don't pretend. Trust is fragile, and honesty is the only way to protect it." That's the lesson everyone should take away. The man left the courthouse that day not just facing the law, but carrying the weight of public judgment. His fake authority had crumbled, and there was no way to rebuild it. And the lesson echoed in the minds of everyone who had witnessed the ordeal. Honesty isn't just moral, it's essential. Lies always catch up. Pretenders always fall. The courtroom was tense. Every seat was filled. The air felt heavy with anticipation as the judge prepared to read the jury's decision. Cameras recorded every moment. People who had followed the story for weeks watched live streams, waiting for justice to be served. The man who had pretended to be a cop sat rigid, his hands trembling. He had tried to defend himself, but every lie he told had been dismantled. Every attempt to manipulate the narrative had failed. The evidence was undeniable. Witnesses' video footage and his own inconsistencies all pointed to the same truth. The jury filed back in. Silence fell. The foreperson stood, holding the verdict in hand. On the charge of impersonating a police officer, the foreperson began, voice steady, "We find the defendant guilty." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The man's face drained of color. On the charge of harassment and intimidation, the foreperson continued, "We find the defendant guilty." The woman in the courtroom exhaled slowly, relief washing over her. She hadn't sought revenge, she had only sought truth. And truth had won. The judge looked at the man, voice firm but measured. "You have abused the trust of the public, and you have humiliated an innocent person. Your actions will carry consequences that reflect the seriousness of your deception." Let this be a reminder. Honesty is not optional. It is the foundation of trust, respect, and law. As the gavel struck, the courtroom reacted. Some whispered, some nodded. Others simply stared in awe at the power of truth over lies. The man's attempt to project authority, to gain respect through deception, had failed utterly. His reputation was destroyed, his credibility gone, and the legal consequences would follow. Outside the courthouse, the woman spoke briefly to reporters. "This isn't just about one person or one moment," she said. "It's a lesson for everyone. Honesty is the only way to live with integrity. Lies may seem easier, but they always catch up, and they always destroy the one who hides behind them." The man left the courthouse escorted by officers, not with confidence or pride, but with shame and fear. His lies had caught up with him, and there was no escaping the reality he had created. And the community? They remembered the lesson. Honesty had won. Pretending to be someone you're not had led to public humiliation, legal consequences, and lost respect. Weeks after the verdict, the story continued to circulate. Social media, local news, and word of mouth kept it alive. People shared the woman's courage. The moment a fake cop was exposed, and the undeniable lesson. Honesty is the best policy. Schools invited her to speak. Community groups asked her to tell her story. She emphasized how lies, no matter how confident or convincing, always catch up. She told students, neighbors, and colleagues that integrity was not just a virtue. It was essential for trust, respect, and survival. Meanwhile, the man who had pretended to be a cop faced the consequences in every part of his life. Job opportunities vanished. Friends distanced themselves. People on the street recognized him, whispered, or shook their heads. His reputation, once inflated by lies, had imploded completely. He tried again and again to regain some credibility, but the evidence of his deception was permanent. Every video, every testimony, every news report reinforced the truth. His lies had built him a house of cards, and the wind of honesty had blown it all down. For the woman, life returned to normal in many ways, but she remained quietly proud of the difference her actions made. She didn't seek fame, she sought accountability. And in doing so, she inspired countless others to stand up against deception and abuse of trust. Even months later, whenever the incident was mentioned, people reflected on the moral. Pretending to be someone you're not might bring short-term power or attention, but it will always end in humiliation, legal consequences, and lost respect. The man's fall became a cautionary tale. Conversations at workplaces, schools, and family gatherings referenced it. People asked themselves, am I honest in my words, my actions, my promises? The story became more than one encounter. It became a lesson for the entire community. And the woman? She had done more than expose a fake cop. She had reminded everyone that courage, integrity, and honesty are the strongest forms of power. Lies might dazzle for a moment, but truth lasts forever. Months had passed since the incident, but the story still resonated. People in the community, in nearby towns, and across social media remembered the woman who had stood her ground and the man who had pretended to be a cop. The man's life was forever changed. Every attempt to rebuild trust failed. Friends, neighbors, employers all remembered the humiliation, the lies, and the courtroom moments. His false authority had crumbled completely. The woman, however, continued her life with quiet dignity. She didn't seek fame or recognition. She simply knew she had done the right thing. And in doing so, she had reminded everyone watching that courage and honesty matter more than power or pretense. In homes, workplaces, and schools, people shared the story. It became more than an incident. It became a lesson. Pretending to be someone you're not only leads to disgrace, legal consequences, and lost respect. Integrity, honesty, and truth are the only ways to maintain trust and dignity. Local media followed up months later. Interviews with the woman focused not on revenge, but on accountability and lessons learned. Lies might seem harmless or even clever, she said, but they always catch up. Pretending to be someone you're not can ruin your life. Honesty is the only way to live with respect, safety, and peace of mind. The community remembered her courage, and it inspired others to act with integrity. People who witnessed the incident or saw it online carried the lesson into their own lives. They reflected, reconsidered their choices, and committed to honesty in their words and actions. And the man? He had nothing left but regret. No uniform, no badge, no facade. Just the truth. That lies never last, and pretending to be someone you're not always comes with consequences. The story ended not with anger, but with clarity. The lesson was simple, yet powerful. Honesty is the best policy. Pretenders will fall. Truth will always rise. And in a world where so many choose shortcuts and deception, one woman's courage reminded everyone that integrity is stronger than fear, lies, or false power. If this story moved you, take a moment to sit with it. Lies may seem harmless, but truth always has a way of finding its way. Sometimes standing up and speaking the truth saves more than just yourself. Subscribe to stay connected to stories that don't just entertain. They remind us what it means to have courage, integrity, and honor. Here, we tell stories about consequence, bravery, and the power of honesty.